Have you ever stopped to think about the incredible tale of the Suez Canal? This incredible waterway has been linking the East and West for ages, but there's a whole lot more to its story than you might think. Today, we're going to unveil 9 captivating facts about the Suez Canal that will totally transform your view of this remarkable feat of human ingenuity. From its ancient beginnings to the controversies of today, we're about to take a deep dive into the fascinating history of the Suez Canal. So, get ready to join us on this eye-opening journey through time. 9 fascinating facts about the Suez Canal. Discover the details of the man-made waterway that connects the Eastern and Western worlds. 1. Its origins date back to ancient Egypt. There were formerly multiple man-made waterways that twisted their way across Egypt. The Suez Canal of today is merely the most recent. A similar project was started and then abandoned by the Egyptian pharaoh Senusret III and the Persian conqueror Darius, according to ancient texts. Senusret III may have been the first to build a canal connecting the Red Sea and the Nile River circa 1850 BC. It is said that the canal was completed in the 3rd century BC during the Ptolemaic dynasty, and it is possible that Cleopatra and other historical people went on it. Rather than the direct link offered by the modern Suez Canal, this ancient canal of the pharaohs would have wound its way through the desert to the Nile River, which was then used to access the Mediterranean. 2. Napoleon Bonaparte considered building it. Napoleon Bonaparte, the French military commander, commissioned a team of surveyors to explore the possibility of cutting the Isthmus of Suez and constructing a canal from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean after conquering Egypt in 1798. However, after 4 different trips through the area, his scouts came to the false conclusion that the Red Sea was at least 30 feet higher than the Mediterranean. They cautioned that any attempt to build a canal might cause the Nile Delta to flood catastrophically. Napoleon was sufficiently alarmed by the surveyors' inaccurate calculations to abandon the project, and canal plans were shelved until 1847, when a group of investigators ultimately determined that the Mediterranean and Red Seas did not differ significantly in altitude. 3. The British government was strongly opposed to its construction. In 1854, the Suez Canal Company was established by an agreement brokered by Ferdinand de Lesseps, a former French diplomat, and the Egyptian viceroy. This marked the official start of the canal's planning. Since Napoleon III, the French emperor, endorsed Lesseps' projected canal, many British leaders saw its development as a political ploy to challenge their hegemony in international trade. Supporting the canal, according to the British ambassador to France, would be a suicidal act. British papers dubbed the project a flagrant robbery gotten up to despoil the simple people when Lesseps attempted to sell company shares. Lesseps went on to engage in a public war of words with British Prime Minister Lord Palmerston, and even challenged railway engineer Robert Stephenson to a duel after he condemned the project in Parliament. The British Empire continued to criticize the canal during its construction, but it later bought a 44% stake in the waterway after the cash-strapped Egyptian government auctioned off its shares in 1875. 4. It was built using a combination of forced peasant labor and state-of-the-art machinery. Massive labor was needed to build the Suez Canal, and the Egyptian government first provided most of it by making the impoverished work for meager wages under threat of violence. Tens of thousands of peasants dug the first sections of the canal by hand using picks and shovels starting in late 1861. The project encountered a roadblock in 1863 when Egyptian ruler Ismail Pasha abruptly outlawed the use of forced labor. Progress was agonizingly slow. Lesseps and the Suez Canal Company altered their approach due to a severe labor shortage, and they started excavating the canal with several hundred specially designed shovels and dredgers driven by coal and steam. The new technology gave the project the boost it needed, and the company went on to make rapid progress during the last 2 years of construction. Of the 75 million cubic meters of sand eventually moved during the construction of the main canal, some 3/4 of it was handled by heavy machinery. 5. The Statue of Liberty was originally intended for the canal. French sculptor Federico Auguste Bartholdi attempted to persuade Ferdinand de Lesseps and the Egyptian authorities to allow him to erect a sculpture named Egypt Bringing Light to Asia at the Mediterranean entrance of the Suez Canal in 1869. As the canal was almost finished, Bartholdi imagined a 90-foot-tall monument of a woman wearing Egyptian peasant clothes and holding a large torch, which would also function as a lighthouse to direct ships into the canal. The design was inspired by the ancient Colossus of Rhodes. Though the project was never completed, Bartholdi kept exploring the idea for his statue, and in 1886 he eventually displayed the finished piece in New York Harbor. The monument, formerly known as Liberty Enlightening the World, is now more often known as the Statue of Liberty. 6. Its creator later tried, and failed, to build the Panama Canal. After building the Suez Canal to appease his detractors, Ferdinand de Lesseps focused on building a canal over the Panama Isthmus in Central America. Lesseps predicted that the new canal would be easier to make, easier to complete, and easier to keep up than the Suez, but in spite of this, work on the project eventually broke down into chaos. Work started in 1881. Many people lost their lives while building in the hot, disease-ridden jungle, and the project cost close to $260 million, which was never finished. When the business finally collapsed in 1889, it set off a huge controversy in which Lesseps and a number of other people were found guilty of fraud and conspiracy. Among them was Gustave Eiffel, the creator of the Eiffel Tower, who had been engaged to construct canal locks. Before the 10-year, American-led construction effort of building the Panama Canal was finally finished, another 25 years would pass. 7. The canal played a crucial role in a Cold War-era crisis. A brief conflict in 1956 pitted Egypt against the combined armies of Britain, France, and Israel revolved around the Suez Canal. Britain's military presence of the Canal Zone, which persisted even after Egypt attained independence in 1922, was the root of the conflict. Tensions reached a breaking point in July 1956 when Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal, purportedly to help finance a dam across the Nile River. Many Egyptians despised the continued colonial presence. In October 1956, a combined British, Israeli, and French force attacked Egypt in what became known as the Suez Crisis. The Europeans managed to advance nearly to the canal, but after facing criticism from the US and the prospect of nuclear war from the USSR, they shamefully withdrew from Egypt. Following the controversy, British Prime Minister Anthony Eden resigned, leaving Egypt in control of the Suez Canal. 8. A fleet of ships was once stranded in the canal for more than 8 years. The Suez Canal was closed by the Egyptian government and blocked on both sides by mines and scuttled ships during the Six-Day War that broke out between Egypt and Israel in June 1967. 15 foreign cargo ships were berthed at the canal's midway at Great Bitter Lake at the time of its closing. Due to the desert sand that covered their decks, they came to be known as the Yellow Fleet during their 8 years of being stranded in the waterway. While the remaining crew members passed the time by creating their own floating village and organizing social and sporting events, the majority of them were assigned to 3-month rotations on and off the stranded vessels. The fleet even created its own internal trading system and stamps as the years went by. In 1975, the 15 marooned ships were eventually permitted to exit the waterway. Only 2 of the ships were seaworthy enough to complete the journey on their own by that point. 9. In 2015, the canal got a huge overhaul. For many years, the canal's poor depth and limited width prevented it from handling the two-way traffic of contemporary tanker ships. Egypt's Suez Canal Authority unveiled a bold idea in August 2014 to extend the canal's depth and add a new 22-mile route that would diverge from the main channel. Ships now have a 22-mile channel running parallel to the recently deepened main waterway, thanks to the enlargement, which opened in 2015. However, in March 2021, a 1,300-foot cargo ship sailing from China became wedged and stuck in the canal due to insufficient upgrades. For about a week, the ship obstructed over 100 ships at either end of the crucial transportation route, seriously impeding international trade. As we come to the end of our journey through the fascinating history of the Suez Canal, it's clear that this famous waterway has had a big impact on the world. From long ago to today, the story of the Suez Canal is about being strong, smart, and always wanting to connect with others. So, until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the amazing things our world has to offer.